In this video, we're gonna grab a cylinder and model something interesting out of it, and in a process, you're gonna learn some cool techniques for tricky transitions for organic hard surface in Blender. Let's go. We're gonna start with a cylinder, and when you're running sub D, you need to decide how dense your mesh should be. And the denser the mesh, the more difficult it's going to be to reshape it because you have more polygons to move, and this is usually cause of wobbly surfaces. So the more low poly you go, the better. But we know that we need to create some intricate detail here. So I don't want to go to, I don't want to go too low poly on this because then I will not be able to create the details I want, right? So if the topology is simply too large, I will not be able to create details I want, right? So let's just deselect these. And let's just drop them down with machine tools. I'm using add-ons because, it's Friday. And here we're gonna move this to. And I want to kind of, I'm thinking that I might want to keep this sort of sloping. That's kind of cool. I'm not, I don't have a problem with that. Now, what I do need is a circle here in the middle, okay? So Q, and we're gonna run a circle with hard ups, and you want that many verts, right? Now, we're gonna be making this circle larger, but later. So let's connect them so we have quads everywhere, okay? So we don't have to worry about topology right now. But generally speaking, when you're creating stuff like this, you really don't need to worry about topology because the most important thing at the moment is the edge flow that will accommodate the shape transitions that we want to introduce, right? So, topology is important, but not that important yet, okay? So now here, I want this to be larger. Now, when I'm going to make this larger, obviously, we're going to run into multiple problems. We're going to have to slide stuff around. So maybe we can start doing just that. So let's grab these and slide them up here. Let's grab these and slide them up here. And we're going to kind of, slowly relax this area here, right? And then we're going to make a space. So now Alt X to the other side. Make sure to turn this on because we need this edge in the middle. This is Mesh Machine, by the way. And this if this is all confusing for you and you don't know what the hell is going on, then it means you're very new to Blender and you probably should start with basics. And we have a fantastic program for that, which is called Hard Surface Accelerator, which will teach you all the basics, about Blender, all the menus, the tools, everything that you need in order to understand hard surface modeling. At least the basics, right? So go ahead and grab the course. It's fantastic. The link is in the video description. We have over 4,000 students in the program. They're getting amazing results and they love it. In any case, what I want to do now is I want to create a perfect circle here because you see this circle isn't perfect because it got flattened. So let's select this here. So click Alt click and this will not work. We need to go with a loop select or this one. Let's select, okay. And I want to go to Loop Tools, which is a Blender native add-on, and run the circle, which is going to help us with that. Now let's move this deeper because, we need to. And this one is going to have to be moved in as well. So GX and move it in, and we can actually indent it like this. Now, when you're running sub D, you want to make sure that the flow supports what you want to do. What I mean by that is there's quite an abrupt angle change here. So what we can do is just move it a little bit in and sort of ease off this kind of a transition here, between these shapes. I think this is going to look a little bit better. In addition, what you could do is grab all these verts here and go to Loop Tools and run Relax on them, okay? It's going to relax them a little bit better. This should be a little bit deeper in my opinion, and the top is fine. What we can do is run another loop here, right? And select this entire loop here and run a circle on that. So this is going to fix more or less the topology, but we need to run it with a surface slide. So let's enable surface slide, which I think it's, hang on a second. I think surface slide should be here. Let me Interesting. I think I need to enable it in machine tools. So let me see that. Surface Slide is a very good tool that's going to allow you to maintain the curvature of the of the machine tools. If I can spell, let me see this. Surface Slide, this one. Okay, let's enable that. And by the way, these are my tools enabled in machine tools. So now let's enable this through tab, and then when I'm going to run a circle, this should work, hopefully. There you go. See, now it sort of slides on the surface. Now, it didn't create a perfect circle here, but that's fine. I think that's okay. So it's going to help a little bit with the flow. Now you need to finish surface slide. This is actually a modifier, so we can finish it in here. It's going to get applied. Cool. So we got that. Now, what I also want is I want this edge here to kind of be a bit more aggressive. Now, we can't see anything at the moment, so let's just maybe run a subdivision on it. So I'm going to run a bevel here, so 2 segmented bevel, 3 edges to create a supporting loop. I'm going to run 1 here, and I'm going to nuke this face from the bottom because we don't need it. Control 2 and smooth shading. Now you see, what I want is I want this to transition really nicely with a sharp edge. In order to achieve this shape, what we need is we need to, you know, run another loop in here. Now we can't really run another loop here like this because this is going to mess up entirely the shading on this cylinder. So what we need to do, we need to run a loop in a smart way. So let's run it in here first like this, right? Let's connect it here to create a quad. Let's run it all the way down here to this. And like I said, at the moment, don't worry about, you know, n-gons or schmen-gons. We just need to create a shape first that, you know, we're going to be happy with, okay? And I'm going to run, in fact, one more loop in here to make it a bit more crease. You see, now we're getting somewhere, okay? Now we're going to have a lot of problems in here, but don't worry about it right now. We're going to sort it in a minute. Here, what I want to do is S Shift Z to make this even larger. And then I'm going to insert this and then I'm going to extrude it. And this is going to be our, you know, our cap in here of this barrel. I want it to be a bit larger like that, right? And then we need to sort out this mess. Now, this is really easy to solve. What we could do is we could, you know, connect them into a triangle here at the end. You could do this, or what you could do, we could, you know, remove one of these edges, and so remove this one, right? So dissolve it, just Control X, and then, you know, GG, and then you got an n-gon, but we could, you know, run this edge here like that, right? So this would be one of, you know, one of ways of doing this. And then we're gonna have a pole in here, and we need to determine whether this pole is gonna be causing issues, because poles will cause issues and pulling on different areas depending on what area you're running it on, right? So if you don't have any issues with a pole, then you're fine. But if you do, you're gonna have to rethink it. You see, now this is a flat area, so we're fine. And it's sort of secured by 2 creases, so we should be fine. But if you really wanted to run a clean topology in here, you could. We could just completely rethink how we're going to be, you know, running this. But again, we can do this later. At the moment, I'm not worried about this at all. What I'm worried about is how I'm going to solve this problem here on the top. So now, what I want is I don't want it to go up, but I want it to crease it, you know, to the right, right? So we would need to run some loops from here, maybe like this, okay? And, you know, sort of curve it this way, all right? So run it this way here across this shape. So this loop would also be needing to, you know, would need to curve to the right and go maybe this way, right? Like that, okay? And then we're gonna have to sort out this mess. So we can remove this edge here, dissolve it, right? And then we can redirect the flow in here. So we got one more edge here in the middle, right? Which is going to be problematic. So what we could do is we could combine these. So GG and, you know, and move them to the top, right? Here. And then we could just clean that and maybe lower it down a little bit to ease off and kind of make these polygons here a bit smaller and evenly spaced. And then we still have this problem here, which could be solved in this way. So we could run an edge here, nuke this rubbish, right? So nuke that, and before we do that, we could simply run an edge here in the middle, okay? And then we can dissolve this, and we can dissolve this, and we don't really need this one here either, right? So now we got quad, 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 and we got quad in here as well. And we're gonna have this, you know, kind of a shape going up. Now, if you wanted to crease it to the top, we could collapse it here like this, right? Remove this one, for example, and have a quad over there as well, right? And then you mirror it to the other side. You can nuke all this nonsense here, which we don't need, okay? And let's see how this looks. You see, this doesn't look too bad. We got a bit of a wobble here on this, obviously. So maybe a better idea would be running something like this, right? Maybe this is gonna be a better idea. So let's see how this will work for us. And maybe this one could be slightly, you know, loosen up, and maybe we could run a quad in here instead of n-gon, run a quad, and I think this is gonna be much better. You see, much cleaner. So now we got this nice crease running around, and this will allow us to grab this entire face here, make it larger, this, you know, this selection, and then move it a little bit up here. Maybe, actually, maybe do this, okay? So let's scale it up a little bit here like that. Introduce a loop in here. How we looking? We're looking pretty good. And obviously we might use another loop here on top to make it really sharp. Now you're gonna get this kind of a crease here, which you may want or you may not want, so depending on what you want, but we could just get rid of it by, you know, doing this and cleaning this mesh, and then you're gonna get this kind of a more smooth transition in here. We could even, you know, clean this, right? So we could grab these and clean them as well. Press 3 here and do the same thing. So remove this one and create a quad, right? And then you're gonna get this interesting transition here, very sharp edge. But then you're gonna have this smooth, beautiful surface here flowing into this in the bottom. So it really depends what you wanna do, you see? And then once you get the flow, you know, running on your mesh, then you can start worrying about topology, okay? Like for example, this one, I would move in a little bit. Same with these, right? I will just move them in a bit. What you also can do, you can move them, watch this, okay? I'm gonna move a cursor here to, let me see this. Let me just grab a circle. I'll show you a neat trick, okay? So we're gonna grab a circle, which is here. And we're gonna move it up more or less on this, you know, on this elevation. Shift S and move a cursor to selected. We're gonna shift the pivot to cursor. We're gonna go back here, and then we're gonna select these verts, right? These ones, okay? And we're gonna scale them on cursor. You see, all of this to the middle, right? So they're gonna get really nicely scaled. Now these could be a little bit bulging out, so we can bulge them out a little bit. But you can even go S, Shift, Z, so you're going to be scaling them on, you know, on a 0 in terms of Z-axis, but you will be scaling them outside, away from the cursor, right? Something like that, and then we could just copy to the other side. It's pretty good. And now we need to solve this rubbish, right? So, you know, here what we could do, we can't really run a loop in here across this shape because this will not work. In fact, let's just fix this face in here. For the meantime, I'm just gonna insert it and call it a day. The angle here is fine, by the way, because it's, you know, if you really wanted to fix this, you can just, you know, get rid of that, right? And you could just, you know, grid fill this, okay? So Control F and grid fill, right? But honestly, it doesn't really matter. You know, you kind of just a face over there. But this mess here needs to be sorted. So again, we could use the same trick, so you could, you know, combine these two. Maybe this is gonna work, right? Maybe not. This is really close to, you know, to this bevel, so this could be pulling a little bit. But again, if I'm gonna secure this from this side with an edge, it might be actually fine. So let's see that this triangle is causing a little bit of issues. And let's just, you know, relax this a little bit and see how this is. This is much better. I think it's fine. Now you need to remember that when you're gonna be applying subdivision, you know, things gonna shift a little bit here and there because we have now different sizes of polygons. But when you're creating details in the mesh, this is unavoidable. So, you know, you're gonna end up with a bit of a pokey here and there, right? We could have another crease in here just for fun if you really wanted to. This could solve the problem of our you know, triangle in here. So what we could do, you could run another, you know, loop here like this around if you really wanted to kind of flesh out this detail, or even run it to here, you know, like this, right? So watch this, you see what I mean? You're getting this beautiful crease in here. And if you're going to, no, we could, well, we could technically nuke this one, but if we're gonna do that, we're gonna, you know, ruin the idea here. So what we could do instead is run another edge here like this, right? And then nuke this one here and, you know, kind of relax this one, right? You want to always run a sort of a diamond shape, not something like this, because that's going to create collapsing of edges and you're going to have, you know, you're going to be in a world of pain. You see, that's going to create this nice crease. And then you can, you know, obviously, let me just enable surface slide again. I'm going to move this vert here and actually, let's move it in here. Okay, and then I'm going to slide these closer. Let me just finish surface slide. Slide these closer, right, to create this really kind of a, you know, tight rim in here. Okay, so let's just do that. And now this is gonna be an n-gon, right? So what we could do is move it in here and then run this edge like this, right? So you're gonna have a triangle and then a quad. Right, and this is gonna create a bit of a more of a crease. Now you see that this is what I'm talking about collapsing topology. If I'm gonna apply this, you'll understand what I mean. So watch this. If I'm going to apply this subdivision right now, right? Okay, apply it. Watch what happens. You see, because the edges are so close, and also the polygons are of different size, you get stretching and kind of like clamping of polygons, and this is what's gonna cause this pinching effect, right? So you need to be, you know, sometimes there are limitations of polygon modeling. What we could do here, for example, right, we could relax this. We could run additional edge loop in here like that, right? And then, you know, sort it maybe in this way. Not the best idea, but we could do that. And this is going to create smaller polygons in here and relax, you know, this kind of a shading. Another thing we could do, we could move this lower here, move this one in here, and this should help the situation a little bit, but I still think that basically, you know, these polygons are just too large. So, you know, another solution for this would be to run additional loops here, and instead of running, you know, 4 segmented bevel, we could run 8 segments, right? And with 8 segments, you're gonna get smaller polygons, and, you know, things gonna be better. Another thing you can do, let me just go back, right? Another thing you can do, you could run a crease on this edge, right? So you could run, you know, a partial crease on it. So we could go here to edge crease and, you know, crease it a little bit. And this is going to crease this area and, you know, as much as you want, basically. So let's just go here and crease it more, right? And, you know, you're going to be able to crease it. Obviously, you're going to have to increase the number of subdivisions in order to see it, but you know, something like this is also possible. And then you could you know, change the amount of crease on these edges. So go to crease and just kind of relax this a bit on this one, right? And make it a bit stronger here, or even relax this one as well, just a little bit, you know, so they're gonna be flowing a bit more natural, you know, into one another, right? So we could do something like that. But I think a soft transition is kind of cool. I kind of like it, I'm not gonna lie. So I might just leave it. We just simply need a bit more, you know, topology in here, because these polygons are quite large, right? And we got, you know, really very violent surface transitions here. The same here. You see, we get a bit of a pinching here. So maybe a better idea here would be to still, you know, run another loop here like this, and maybe relax it the other way up. Okay, so watch, instead of going down here, what we could do is relaxing going up here, right? Do this, right? And this is going to relax it, or even combine it with this edge, right? GG, and then do this. So let me just see this. It's not ideal because we have an end gun here. Right? It's a quad. Yeah, this area is causing problems, so this is gonna be problematic. Let me just see if I can. Yeah, that's really tough here. I think this is as as good as it's gonna get in here, to be honest. Probably gonna be tough to fix it. I mean, we could crease this edge here as well, so click alt click this entire loop here. Let me just turn it off, right? Let me just select this whole loop here, and let's just crease it a little bit, right, and see what happens. Yeah, that's gonna look nasty as fuck. I don't like that. Okay, cool. Well, another thing we could do, we could play with, with the positioning of the loops. So we could just move them up and down, and see if this, if things gonna relax a little bit. Sometimes it helps to just move polygons, a little bit. We could move these down a little bit, right, as well. So we could try doing something like that. And this is gonna create larger polygons in here. So maybe in this case, we can actually run a regular loop in here, so we're gonna have quads everywhere, and instead of running triangles, we're simply gonna relax the bottom loop. Do you know what I mean? So you always have to try different things. You see, that looks a bit better, right? There's still a bit of an edge here, but that's because we have these here, so we could relax them even further, maybe like that. Grab this one, drop it even further. So there's a gradual transition between the size of polygons, because you see these are massive, right? I mean, they're really huge. So the problem is now, the difference of size in polygons, and that's what's causing this pinching, right? So we can relax them a little bit. You see now it's way more smooth in here, and that's more of what I wanted, right? Okay, cool. So that that's decent. Let's see. I think we're good. This could be done a little bit better, maybe going closer here like this, maybe. Or maybe not, maybe even the other way around. Hang on, GG, and just relax it in here a bit. Maybe move this one a bit further deeper here. Like I said, you need to play with these to kind of, feel which way these polygons want to kind of curve, right? I think when I go down, it's gonna relax it. Or maybe forward. How's this then? No, that will not be. Actually, what we could do. You see, these polygons are so huge. They just literally ask us to, to kind of subdivide them. Maybe a helpful thing to do would be to run another loop in here. I'm just saying. Let me see this. Will this help? I don't know. But let's try this. So if we're gonna run a loop in here, obviously, we can just run. I mean, we cannot have this this shape in here. So what we could do is maybe even finish this earlier. So instead of finishing it in here, we could finish it in here. And then we're gonna have a quad here, and we could dissolve this and move it backwards. Maybe that's gonna be better, right? I think this is cleaner. Yeah, see, so subdividing these polygons into something smaller actually created better results. It's still not perfect, and we do need to solve this end gun, but I think this is the way to go. And then we can run a triangle here and see, if this is going to be producing a better result, and I think it does. You see, now we got this lovely crease, and probably we can even adjust it further by tightening this in here, but I'll just leave them be. And that looks good to me. Okay, that looks good to me, and obviously we need to copy to the other side. Let's just remove the crease from these edges. So clear, where is it, edge crease, and then -1, so it's gonna be gone. And this looks good. Now here we need a kind of like a cap or something, so let's just expand this. In fact, what you could do, we could do something like this. In fact, add another loop here. So one more time, right? And just grab that and control click on curve extract, which is going to copy this mesh. And we could add the solidification on top of it. So, you know, multiply, solidify, and you're gonna get a cap. So now we're working with hard ups and box cutter in addition to subdivision surface modifier. This could be inserted one more time and, you know, dropped in, and maybe insert it one more time to create this kind of like a cap here. And, you know, we could just run another loop here on in here to tighten the top. And I think this looks pretty good. There's a bit of a wobble here, but I think it looks pretty cool. Looks a bit more like a cap, you know, that would fit on top of this cylinder. Now, another thing I want to do is I want to create a sort of an indentation here, but that's easy. F and, you know, do something like this. We could create a smaller opening here, extrude it down. All right, so this is gonna be our barrel, and then we could create some kind of like a, you know, sort of opening here. So let's just insert it, and I'm going to extrude it down to create this kind of like a crease. And then here on the bottom, I want to create another one. So let's create another one here, and then Alt S and scale it in, and maybe scale it up a bit. And then we're gonna run a loop here and another loop here. I'm gonna have a crease here on the bottom. Lovely. And we could make this a bit longer. So a bit longer, and extrude it, and then face it. And I'm going to run, you know, I'm going to run a chamfer on it, and then 2 bevels, right? So we're going to have something like this, and this one we're going to split into 2, move it a little bit higher, maybe larger, and let's insert it and then scale it in and insert it one more time. And let's just run 2 bevels here like this, and I'm going to run shift curve extract on this one and scale it up on individual origins. So shift S to geo, scale it up. We're gonna get this kind of a situation, which is kind of interesting. And, you know, then we can just let me just nuke this circle here. Let me see if we're good. I think we're good. It looks pretty peachy to me. Now there is a bit of I mean, this transition here could be a bit better. You see that? Kind of like a lip. What we could do here is kind of relax this transition a bit, okay? So what we could do is GG here, GG, oh, just, you know, use a surface slide, okay? So use a surface slide here like that, and sort of relax, you know, these a little bit here. So this transition here is not so crazy, all right? And also this quad is a little bit more relaxed here on this side. So you see now this transition here gonna kind of flow into the shape a little bit better. And also these could be slightly deeper. So let me just finish this. GG, move it in. And by doing so, we're going to also make these polygons slightly, you know, slightly more even, of an even, you know, more even size. So maybe these, I'm gonna move these, so GG, and move them in here. And I think this is gonna be better, but let me see. Yeah, I think it's a little bit better. We could move them even deeper, so GG and move them deeper, you know, like somewhere here. Now this could be also solved a little bit differently, but we would need 2 more loops in here, so this could become really congested. And I really like this kind of a soft lip, but if you really wanted to, you could run these loops, you know, this one, you could run it to this edge, and then this one across. I mean, we could try it. Let me see that. Shift D and, you know, move it, let me just finish surface slide, move it here, and let's see if it's gonna work, okay? So what I'm trying to do here is as follows. Move this one slightly closer, so GG, okay, slightly closer, and then run 2 loops here, so subdivide this one and also subdivide this one, right? Then run 2 verts in here, and then these verts would be connected as such. This one would be running here and this one would be running here, right? So then let me just think. We would need to run this across here like this, right? So this loop would be running here, and this loop would be running this way, okay? See, sub Ds, you need to really have a good spatial kind of awareness and imagination, because if you, this is why we don't teach sub D to new people, because it's just too much. You see, and that's going to create this kind of like a sharper lip in here, which is, you know, it's all right. I mean, it's not a big deal, but, you know, if that's what you fancy, that's what you fancy. Do you know what I mean? You could even lift this one a little bit higher, yeah? If you do this, the transition is going to be a bit less violent, you see? And this is going to clean up a lot of the problems in here and also prevent a lot of issues. And then you get a bit of a more clean topology all around, right? But, you know, basically that's it. I think that looks pretty cool. Now, another thing we could do is we could run another crease here on top, but, you know, that's not really a rocket science. We're just going to grab this one and, you know, Alt-S and insert it just a little bit to create this kind of like a lip on top, and I think it's going to look pretty cool. That's actually too much. Maybe just a little bit, you know, like just a little bit of an indentation. Boom, that looks kind of cool. Right, that looks kind of cool, kind of like a separation on top. I'm not sure if it's not too much. Maybe cleaner transition is better, because then you can focus on the flow of these curves, you know. Design is important. Yeah, I think this is actually pretty cool. So we could use this one, you know. So let's move cursor to selected, and we're going to, you know, delete this one and move this one to cursor. So Shift S and move to cursor, right? So we replace this shape basically. Now there's a bit of a wobble here. And I think the reason for this is because this wall is so straight. So what we could do is we could move it out a little bit, okay? And, you know, make it flow a little bit better. So, you know, like I said, it's really important to make these verts more relaxed. So we could actually run a relax tool on this one. See, it's gonna relax it a bit. And then slide them in here like this. And, you know, kind of chill this area out a bit, you know. And if you move it, if you slide these verts up and down like this, so GG, move it down, GG, they're gonna kind of relax themselves, which is an interesting way of working. See what I mean? Something like that. And this should look a little bit better, does it? I think this is still too close. GG, maybe. Let me see that. I think not. I think actually this one, the tighter version of it, is a bit better. It's a bit of a wobble. I mean, we can just check it in the mod cup, but not this one. This one is better. Let me see that. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. It's actually pretty decent. So it's actually pretty decent. You don't have any, you know, kind of nasty zigzaggy lines, so this looks pretty okay. I'm pretty cool with that. Cool. So I think we're good. I think we're good. And you know, we could texture this, and I just, you know what, I want to make it a bit more round. I think, you know, what we could do is we could move it out here like this. I think this might actually help. Do you know what I mean? So I think this might actually help. Yeah, see? It kind of relaxes this area a little bit more. This one is still really large. You know, the problem we have here is that these polygons are so massive, right? And then you got the transition to small ones that no matter what you do, you're gonna have a bit of a wobble, but that's actually, I think, better. So, and then, you know, another thing is that we have a pole in here, which is not ideal, right? Because this pole is in kind of like a strategic place, and you know, this is probably what's causing a bit of a wobble in this area, right? That pole. So you might want to, if you really want to be perfect, move these, you know, edges back and forth to relax this area a bit more and see if it's gonna be a bit better. I think it's actually a bit better, so I'm gonna copy to the right side. Cool. All right. Cool. So, you know, that's that. And let's put some textures on it, right? Let's put some textures on it. So let's go to end panel and let's slap some plastic on it. And we could just go with half matte plastic maybe. Let's go to HDRI view, there we go. And we could, you know, make it a bit less reflective. So just flip this, there we go. Something a bit more like half matte, you know what I mean? And we could select these two, right? Copy. In fact, maybe this could be metal, right? Some kind of, I don't know, half matte steel or whatever. And this could be plastic as well, so it could be the same color really. Doesn't really matter. I think it's gonna look really clean. That looks really nice. And then we could, you know, slap some name on it. You could even add some trim sheets, you know. So now for trim sheets, I mean, with sub D active, this could be a bit tricky, but we can try. So let's go to decal machine and just grab some trim sheets here on the bottom and see if it's gonna work. It's actually working pretty well. I'm not sure if the shading gonna hold, but you know, we can try. It's actually holding pretty well. And these decals gonna work obviously with our add-on Material Works because Proxy is a genius. So, and by the way, we're working on a new update that's gonna allow you to add the decals, you know, just using our add-on, which bypasses the need for using decal machine. You know, it's just another add-on in a way, and it's just annoying because we have to update so many things for it to work. It's just irritating. So let me just slap this one and see what's gonna happen. Nope. Alt click, there we go. Maybe we could create some kind of a, you know, faint separation in here. I mean, that's not really that cool. Let's maybe try this one. Oh, this one could work. Let me see that. I think I'm just gonna keep it like that. It's kind of like, maybe we could actually put it in here, you know, on top. So run another loop here like this, and then run some trim sheets on top here, maybe. You know. And obviously we could have one here. Oh, this one is textured. That's not what I want. Let's maybe drop this one. Oh, that will do. Something like that, you know, on this cup. And we could just pop some name here. So I don't know. Maybe this one. This one's gonna do. And project. And then we're gonna get some floor. Drop it down. And put some matte on it so we can actually see. And there you go. Looking good. Now let's see different lighting. Okay. These HDRIs, by the way, come with the add-on with Materialworks. Not all of them, mind you, but most of them. 6 of them, precisely. They're from Alex Senchel. He created them in Keyshot. They're really good. All right, I think we're looking good. So we could just render it. So anyway, that's it. That's how you can play with these interesting shapes and transitions. Practice it. You can mix and match subdivision with an nGON workflow unless you really need it to be pure sub-D. Then if you're doing something more organic, you can always separate the mesh. Like for example, I could, grab this mesh here, separate it with, with V to separate these two meshes, run sub-D on part of it, and then just normal bevel on the rest because it's just simply too much topology. So when you don't need subdivision, just don't use it because why would you, right? Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And like I said, if you're a beginner or even intermediate and you're interested in learning hard surface modeling, the proper tools, the menus, the proper workflow, and how it all works, including modeling, designing, detailing, texturing, rendering, the whole process, then go ahead and grab our course, which is called the Hard Surface Accelerator, and the link is in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.